Welcome to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. I am your host, Chad Hufford, and this is the podcast where we celebrate the unsung heroes of the working world. Each week, we dive into the incredible stories of honest, hardworking folks who have found financial success through grit, determination, and good old-fashioned elbow grease. So if you're ready to be inspired and learn how to turn your hard work into your own success story, you're in the right place. This is the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. All right, well, we're back again with another episode of the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. Got Greg here with me, and we're going to unpack a recent episode, the one we did with Dan Magone, the boat salvage expert who spent a career doing difficult things and really literally running into harm's way and doing the things that most people would be not willing to do. And you know, as we were recording the episode, and I was being reminded of some of the things in the book, because we barely touched the surface.
Okay.
No pun intended, since he was an underwater welder, but of some of what the book talked about. And I've thought about some of my experiences, like on boats in Alaska. You know, I did not like fishing really, even growing up, or at least charters, because you're wet, you're cold,
that's totally
somebody's
miserable.
puke. Yeah, and that's like, we're paying money for this?
Right.
And thinking like, my worst day fishing was his best day at work. Like,
Right.
I mean,
The boat's already half sunk.
the boat's half sunk, and it probably was a storm that sunk it. So
Right.
it isn't 72 and sunny when you're out there, and you know, going literally, we talk metaphorically about going, you know, weathering life storms. Like, he literally went to go jump into the ocean in the midst of a storm and try to pull a ship out of it,
Right.
and then drag it back to where they could work on it, because most of the time they were miles, sometimes hundreds of miles away from where they can work on. So they had to get the boat just seaworthy enough to drag it with a tug into where they could start to maybe do something. It's just crazy to think about.
It was incredible. So I grew up in Kodiak, so I grew up on boats, and I also grew up welding, but I never thought of like mixing the two. That's like, it's a step too far. So just hearing his story, and then I went on his website, Port of Refuge, and there's portofrefuge.com. There's a lot of great photos of some of the rescue missions that they've done. It's phenomenal. It looks like every day of his life was a harrowing experience.
Yeah.
And he's still doing some of it from what it looks like.
Yeah. I don't think he's out there as much, but yeah, he's still managing some of that and still goes out there. I think it's something that, I mean, like other difficult jobs, like commercial fishing, it gets in your blood, I think, at some point.
Yeah.
But also, you know, way out there, you know, on the Aleutians, there's only so many people. Like, it's a void that he knows needs to be filled. And you know, for people that listen to last episode, he's so unassuming, he's so humble,
Very humble guy.
and I mean, that's how I think people like that are. I mean, we compared him like a Navy SEAL, like or a PJ, a pararescue.
Yep.
Like, you're running into the situations everybody else is running out of. And when you've made a career of doing really hard things, like, you have nothing to prove. And I think there's a sense of calm confidence that comes with that, which he's carried that over to his investment life.
Sure.
You know, and we talked a little bit about this, but the storms that he's weathered from a financial standpoint, in the years that we've worked together, you know, that was, and just to clarify, not to say that the literal storms,
Right.
or anything like the financial ones, but I mean, you know as well as I do, Greg, I mean, we see people panic at the first signs of trouble when it comes to, you know, market volatility, or when it comes to, you know, even uncertainties. Nothing might have happened. There's just a proverbial storm cloud on the horizon, and some talking head said, you know, this thing that Trump just tweeted, or this bill that got passed, or, you know, what just happened in China, or whatever the apocalypse du jour is, this is going to be the next storm. And you have guys like Dan, who weathered physical storms at real risk to life. I mean, he lost coworkers on some of these salvages. Yeah. But then to know what that extreme danger looks like and to be able to be calm and confident in the midst of some of the financial storms. But him and his wife Sue have weathered a lot with us.
Yeah.
Whether this tariff tantrum that we just went through, the inflation stuff in 2022 with the recession scares, of course, COVID, the market was down 34% in 33 days. And then almost 7 years ago at the end of 2018, nobody even remembers this now, it was a blip on the radar, but between, I think, Thanksgiving and Christmas, the S&P was down like 18 or 19%.
No kidding. I didn't even remember that.
Yeah. But again, in the moment, it's the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Absolutely.
But just the idea that every single day he literally went out in storms.
Yeah.
And I think there's a mindset with investors that I don't want to invest unless it's 72 and sunny, unless the sun is shining,
Right.
everything looks good. And like, have you ever seen that happen? You ever seen where there's no negative news and everybody's like, Greg, we should all invest today because all of the companies are poised for amazing profits.
Everything's going to be good. Yeah. No, you'll never see that. It's interesting because it seems like Dan started this mindset at a pretty young age. He was talking about, what was it, even getting out of high school. He said that he wanted a career that set him apart by doing something that nobody else wanted to do. And I'm like, well, he found it, because that's not one that I would want to do, that's for sure. So, but it was cool to see that mindset at a very young age. And I mean, it sounds like that's part of his motivation for writing the book, is a lot of the mindset piece of what you talked about quite a bit in that interview, is just the resilience that somebody like that's got to have to go through. Just the day-to-day resilience, let alone the time away, just the harshness of the environment, losing people, things like that. It's pretty impressive.
And yeah, even on your best day, you're underwater welding, which even in perfect conditions carries its own risk. So you're talking about stepping into real risk. And a lot of what we deal with in finances are, people confuse volatility with risk all the time. And it's uncomfortable. We don't want to discount that. But like Dave Ramsey says, the only way you get hurt on a roller coaster is jumping off. Yeah. And I mean, same thing with volatility. If you have a well-diversified equity portfolio and you ride through this, you ride out the volatility, you ride through the storms, there's a huge blessing on the other side. Right. But people call that risk. It's discomfort, but it's not harm. Like if you have, again, a well-diversified portfolio of companies, some of the best companies on the planet based on your needs and your goals, yes, you're going to get wet. Yes, it's going to be scary. It gets windy and stormy, all those things, but the volatility can't hurt you unless you panic. Yeah,
explain that just a little bit. Explain what volatility is, those up and downs.
Well, and it's the sudden market changes. And people say they don't, and I'm going to circle back to what you just said about risk, or what we're talking about with risk, because the risk that Dan faced and his team faced on a daily basis was real.
Yeah.
And what investors face, there's a lot of risks out there that are real.
You bet.
Like running out of money in retirement, or inflation eating around the value of my dollar, where, 25 years from now, just average inflation, $100 will buy what $50 does. I will lose half my purchase. That's a huge risk.
Right.
But people often confuse temporary volatility with long-term risk.
Right.
And my point was, if let's say you invest in a mutual fund and it's $100 a share.
Okay.
And it goes down to 80, and then it goes up to 120, and then it goes down to 90, then it goes up to 130, then it goes down to 75, and keeps on bouncing, and it ends up at 200. Now, that's volatile. And people say they don't like volatility. That's not true. They don't like negative volatility. We don't get a lot of calls when people's accounts are up 25% in a year.
No, yeah.
Saying this is too much volatility. I can't handle this. Like, again, think of a roller coaster. nobody throws up as you're creeping up. It's on the way down.
Right. I like that.
And that's when you get sick and uncomfortable, right?
Right.
And we're not discounting that. It is uncomfortable, but there's a major difference between what is uncomfortable and what is harmful.
Right.
And people often misconstrue discomfort versus harm. Like, I am uncomfortable in a situation, therefore it must be bad for me.
Sure.
The flip side is also true. This is comfortable and pleasant, therefore it must be helpful. So the flip side of that would be putting our long-term investments in like bonds or CDs that get eaten alive by inflation.
Right.
It's comfortable in the moment, but we're taking a fixed income into a rising cost world.
Mm-hmm.
That's extremely risky.
That's very risky.
But it's comfortable in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So, you think of like a exercise or fitness analogy, which we've used a couple times on this show.
Yeah, there's a few. Yeah.
But it is not comfortable to get up in the morning and run.
No.
Especially outside, like right now. And, maybe there's some risks, it's icy and all that, but you get up at 5 a.m. to go run in the cold and the dark. That's not comfortable, but it has a long-term benefit. The comfortable thing to do is sleep in, wake up, eat morning cake, which some people would call muffins, but eat morning cake while you drink your latte with a bunch of sugar and heavy cream and stuff like that. And, watch the news, or maybe that's not comfortable. Watch some Netflix thing or whatever. Like, that's comfortable. It's comfortable to go next door and have a Big Mac and fries and a Diet Coke. But it's going to harm you in the long run. You trade away long-term security for short-term comfort. And again, going back to what the storms Dan dealt with, that had real risk. We need to make sure as investors, we dissociate discomfort with risk and make sure we're not fighting the wrong dragon. So that was my point in making a distinction. What Dan dealt with was risky and uncomfortable.
Right. It was both. It was the real thing. Yeah.
And what a lot of the storms a lot of investors run from.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they're uncomfortable. Not like trying to pull a ship out of the ocean in the Bering Sea in the midst of a storm uncomfortable, but still uncomfortable.
Right.
But the risk, as long as you stay the course, is low to non-existent. And the longer your time horizon, not just to retirement, but even if you're retired tomorrow, it's still, multi-decade retirement. The actual risk dissipates every single day that goes by until it almost completely disappears. But the risk is actually in the behavior of the investor. Are you going to jump out of your investment in the middle of a storm?
Right. Going back a little bit to one of Dan's points about doing a job that nobody else wanted to do. What do you feel like, is there any parallels there about doing something that a lot of people don't want to do with how we plan?
Well, so I don't know if we touched on it in the episode, in the interview, but in his book, he talks about one of his first jobs and his first experiences as a welder. He was down in Louisiana, I believe, working for an oil company, and they would literally dump him into these mud holes.
Oh yeah,
and
horrible.
Fixing tankers and stuff like
super
that.
Super dangerous too.
Super dangerous, and you're literally I mean, it wasn't like he tiptoed into this underwater welding thing and didn't know what he was signing up for. Like,
yeah,
he knew it was going to be hard, and I think again, there's just that resiliency mindset that I know this is going to be hard, but no growth happens inside a comfort zone.
Yeah,
you don't get to be a better person. You think of any good thing in your life. I'm not trying to dance around your question.
Yeah, no, I know. I get you.
But any good thing in your life probably came from discomfort, came from hard work. Like your kids, not easy being a dad sometimes. And I mean, their labor was probably easier on you than on Elizabeth, but like there's a lot of pain
sure,
for her at least, in them coming into the world. And I don't know, how long have you guys been married?
16 years.
16 years. Yeah. And it's been all rainbows and gumdrops the whole time.
It's not like a Disney movie where you just live happily ever after, right?
And we just celebrate our 20th. Like, yeah, it's amazing. I have 6 wonderful kids, a wonderful wife, but it's been hard.
Sure.
Starting this business was terrifying.
I bet.
At times. especially back in 2008, 2009. Um, some of the best things in my life came from decisions and choices that were extremely difficult in the moment. One of the things that Dan talked about was also the courage that comes from knowing that you've done difficult things.
Yeah.
And that's, I mean, that's what we've tried to remind people of even this year when people's accounts, not few days, not the last few days notwithstanding, but I mean, most of these all-time highs right now,
Yeah.
but reminding people of the storms they've gone through. Like, yeah, it looks good now, but back in March, your account was down like 20% in 3 or 4 weeks. And back in 2022, it was down by about a quarter and stayed down for over a year. Of course, we already talked about COVID, but reminding people of these are the hard things you've already dealt
Yeah.
with. And Dan talked a lot about that. And like you said, I mean, that was a big part of his book, was encouraging people to embrace hard things
Mm-hmm.
because a good life requires weathering storms.
You bet.
And to your question, though, circling back to that, we are asking people to do hard things.
Right.
If building wealth was easy, everybody be wealthy, and it's not. Now, it doesn't need to be as complicated as some people make it, but I think that's part of the problem. Is there's a simple path to wealth, but it's really freaking hard.
Right.
And there's no quick fix. There's no special serum. It's just relatively mundane things done with excellence every single day. And there was no parties for the work that Dan did. I mean, there was a lot of pride and there was a lot of fulfillment, but nobody celebrated that. I mean, there's no TV crews. Mike Rowe didn't. I mean, Mike Rowe would have loved to have seen some of what he did for Dirty Job, but it didn't happen, right? He got no accolades from what he did. Nobody was celebrating that hard work. And it's doing the hard thing when nobody's watching. That's how we build, and that's what we're asking people to do. So you think about Dan and his team running into the situations everybody else was running out of. Just like we said, the PJ, the pararescue, like they're running into harm's way when everybody's running the other way. And I thought about that in light of what we ask our folks to do, the folks that Veritas works with. Everybody else is running into debt. They're buying things that they don't need with money they don't have to impress people they don't even like. We're saying, no, you got to run the other direction. Mm-hmm. We had somebody in our office here recently, and they just said, everything that I've known to be normal in my life, you're saying move against it. And what I told her is, if you're okay with getting the results that everybody else is getting,
oh, that's really good,
then go ahead and do what everybody else is doing. But if you want results different from what the world around you is getting, you have to be willing to make a different choice. And you think about what is normalized in our culture. It is being in debt. It's being broke. It's living paycheck to paycheck. It's living in scarcity, not abundance. It's being overweight, undersaved, over-medicated. Like all that's normal in our culture. If you want something different than what everybody else is getting, you have to make different choices. We have already talked about it today, but investors run away from volatility. We're asking people to run into it. Mm-hmm. People are saying the market's collapsing, I should get out. We're saying, no, the best companies in the world just went on sale, buy more. And so we're asking people to go in a different direction that everybody else around them is going. And that's one of the reasons we do this podcast, is because we want to encourage people that you're not alone in this. It's not the norm. Absolutely. Like the way that we do this will never be the norm because it's hard.
Right.
But it absolutely works. And it doesn't have to be just you doing this on your own. We've talked about before, Greg, finance is a team sport. We want to come alongside people, help them build that community, be part of that community, to guide them along the way, hold them accountable to doing the difficult things when they're fatigued, they're confused, and that happens. But I think that's one of the parallels around moving in the opposite direction of the way everybody else is going.
Well, and it kind of brings me to, one last point. Dan had talked about, with doing these hard things, find a motivation that's outside of yourself. So one of those could be, for doing the hard thing and investing. Well, why would I do that? Well, perhaps it's for me, but maybe also it's for the legacy that I can leave for my kids and grandkids and that sort of, or whatever, for my church, but actually finding something beyond just doing this for ourselves. I feel like it just gives you that little bit extra motivation to actually do it.
Well, and he's a great example of that too, because from a financial standpoint, I mean, he doesn't need to fly out to Unalaska every month and do what he does still.
It's incredible.
But there's a need out there,
Right.
and he's filling that, and he makes an impact. Also, and Dan, I apologize if you're listening, but Dan probably has a hard time sitting still and doing nothing.
Yeah,
So,
I can imagine.
but again, he could find a lot of things to do in town to keep him busy,
Right.
but that's where he feels he has the most impact. So we've talked about before that, if your goal in investing and saving for retirement, again, if your goal is just to quit your job, that's not a big enough why.
Right.
And we encourage people to think beyond the idea of retirement of just 30 years of Saturdays. But what are you going to retire to? What is the impact that you can make when you don't have to go to work every day? When you have the financial freedom to maybe work in a different job that doesn't have the same paycheck but has way more impact?
Right.
Maybe it's ministry, serving in the church. I mean, I just talked to one of our guys up in Fairbanks the other day, and retired oil field, over 4 decades in the oil field. And he is just a huge part of his grandkids' life. They ride motorbikes. Maybe he rides, I don't know. And fishing trips, all these different things. He's picking up from school, talking about how their day went.
Yeah, that's great.
And, some people look at that and be like, well, I mean, it's just grandpa stuff. But it's on such a high level. I told him the other day, I was like, the memories you're making with your kids,
Yeah.
your grandkids,
they'll
be with them forever.
Right.
Like you are creating a different trajectory in their life, and he's reinvesting himself in the lives of his kids. So I don't know what it is for you, and I know what some of the things are for me, but I believe that you're absolutely right, Greg, and what Dan said is true, is you have to have a bigger why.
Yeah.
If it's just about you, doing the hard thing is going to be overwhelming. You're going to want to quit. But if you raise the stakes, if you make it more about other people, who you're serving, the impact you're having, it's not easy to be resilient, but it's easier because the temporary price you're paying has a bigger payoff in the future.
Oh, that's beautiful. Well, I'm going to end with this, Chad. If I want to just thank you for bringing Dan on and some of the awesome, incredible guests that you've brought onto the show. And if you have a great story, reach out to us. We would love to hear your story and maybe bring you on and talk about it.
And what was the website again?
It's portofrefuge.com.
Portofrefuge.com.
Yep.
Portofrefuge.com. More information on Dan. And also get his book if you get a chance.
Get his book and look at his pictures. They're incredible.
Yeah. Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Chad.
Thanks for listening to the Blue Collar Millionaire Show. We hope this episode has been inspiring and beneficial to you. If you want help on your journey to financial freedom, reach out to us at veritasalaska.com. We'd love to sit down over a cup of coffee with you, either here in our office or virtually, and get to know you and your needs. And though this podcast is free of charge, we do ask that you please do us 2 quick favors. If you enjoyed the episode, give our pod a great rating on iTunes or whatever podcast platform you use, and also give us a follow on Instagram. We hope you have a wonderful day filled with gratitude and intentionality. God bless.